You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Could Volkswagen's Scout brand and Sony Honda Mobility be planning to sell their vehicles directly to consumers, much the way Tesla does? Today we're learning more about what led Automotive Trade Association Executives, also known as ATAEs, to take out a full-page ad in automotive news, which I happen to have right here. Made a big impact. Joining me now is the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Automobile Dealers Association and the 2024 chairman of the Automotive Trade Association Executives, John Devlin. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Sure. So you guys put it right on the line with Honda Motor Company and Volkswagen AG to say, hey, what's the deal? What are your intentions here? And basically, you've outlined that it's a much better way to go through a franchise system to sell your products than it is to deal directly with consumers. So talk to us. What was the motivation behind the ad, and what's the response been?
Well, so the history on this goes back over 2 years. NADA started a dialogue with both companies. I think it started in February of 22, and had multiple times where they reached out to them to get a response on this and just kept getting pushback and essentially no answers. And at NADA this year, Mike Stanton reported to us that, they've just been stonewalled and it's not going anywhere. And last year, the ATAE started talking about what we could do to, get this conversation started better. And we decided one of the things we could do was either send letters and maybe even publish a letter in Automotive News. And then we decided to run an ad instead and, outline a little bit of what, well, I'll talk about in a second as to what, why we think this is a good idea. But we decided to run the ad, and we had to then solicit as many states to sign on to that ad as possible. And all 50 states signed on, plus 21 metros, which was really, really, I think, speaks volumes of how much support we have for this.
Oh, for sure. For sure. No question about it. Since the ad, are there any other indications from Scout and Sony, Honda, that regarding their willingness to collaborate with franchise dealers?
Well, we did get a response from Honda, and really the response is nothing that they hadn't already said to NADA, that they do support the relationship they have with the Honda dealers and the franchise system there. But they seem to say that this new Sony Honda Mobility company is so separate it has nothing to do with it. And that's where there's a problem, because I believe they own 50%. That's what their website, I think, had said. Now, that may or may not be accurate. But either way, you can't tell me Honda has helped set up a competitor that they have no interest in.
Exactly. That's crazy.
That would be insane.
Yes.
Yeah, so they absolutely have some interest in this, but now our dealers look like they're going to be cut out of it. And so they've responded basically saying that that's sort of their plan to sell direct, but no other details, like who's going to service these cars, how's that all going to work?
Right.
And, one could lead yourself to believe that they're looking at what is the agency model that's used around the world, except for the United States, where we can get into that. It's not really allowed in most parts of this country.
Right.
And nothing from Volkswagen.
Nothing from Volkswagen. That's interesting. What's interesting to me is that both of these legacy brands, Honda and Volkswagen, that built their success on the backs of dealers. It has been really a great partnership to have this network of franchise dealers, not just buying your products from you as an OEM, but also supporting the serviceability of those vehicles and dealing with those customers. Really to the point now that even Tesla it has said recently that they're taking a look at all different methods of distribution. Maybe that includes a franchise dealer network. I don't know. But it seems to me that Honda and Volkswagen have both benefited greatly in the U.S. by selling their products through franchise dealers. Why wouldn't that be the case with these other vehicles?
Yeah, and I think we were careful to point out in this ad, which, by the way, we had a lot of collaboration on what this should say.
Mm-hmm.
And, it really emphasized a couple of things. One is obviously our dealers are ready to work with them and are excited about being dealers like they have been all along. And number two, though, we did emphasize how good the franchise system works for consumers. That is a big part of this. The price competition among dealers, the ability to do warranty work, to do recalls right away, too. I mean, if they would use us in a full-blown sales and service system,
Sure.
we're ready day one.
Sure.
And right now, I have no idea what their plan is. And to go back to what you were saying, if you look at Tesla, one of their Achilles heels is service.
That's right.
So it
That's
takes
right.
forever to get one fixed.
Yeah.
And don't even think about getting one fixed if it needs body work.
Forget it.
There's a lot of problems here, and it's almost like they're tone deaf as to how we operate in this country and the way the franchise laws are set up.
That's right. One of the lines that you've got in the ad is to avoid potential legal challenges across the nation and ensure full compliance with the applicable laws and regulations. The surest path to sales success is through franchise dealers. Is that kind of a shot across the bow there to say that if we don't like what we see, then we will take legal action?
Well, I think what it's doing is pointing out to them, and again, both of these companies are not domiciled here. They're in, Japan and Germany.
Yeah.
But to go back to our franchise laws, there are most states are going to have a real problem with a direct sales model.
Sure.
Some states even have wording as to whether, if you set up a company, if you're affiliated with it, or if you have controlling interest in it, or some wording in that effect that, you can't really do this. So I can only speak for Pennsylvania. We define sales pretty broadly, buying, selling, or exchanging vehicles, and get into what that means. And it doesn't work here. They can look at the other 49 states, but they are going to have roadblocks immediately in getting licensed and just a whole host of other things.
Sure.
But it's sort of like they think, at least from Honda's point of view, we sent this separate company up, so nothing applies to us.
Yeah.
And they're not reading it correctly.
Sure. I spoke to one dealer about this. He owns about 20 stores in the Southeast, and his feeling on it, his take on it was, look, if they want to come into the U.S. and they want to sell vehicles directly to consumers the way that Tesla does and Lucid and Rivian, have at it. He said, I'm having a great year. I don't see this as a threat to my business. If that's what they want to do, then let them do it. It has nothing to do with me. What do you say to the dealer that feels that way?
Well, I'd say this is this is sort of the camel under, with their nose under the tent. I mean, that if they set it up that way, and again, where would they go to service? Our guess is, and this is speculation, so I'm not saying this is the way it's going to be, they'd go to the existing dealer groups, and that is the agency model. So are you setting up a future problem where companies do this to get around the franchise laws?
Sure.
And I would say to him, you really have to take a long view of this and see what the ramifications would be.
Sure.
And again, I'll go back to my previous statement. A dealer could say that in a particular state, but you better see what the franchise law says about it, because it isn't just that easy.
Right, right. Do you think that some of these companies have looked at Tesla and Rivian and Lucid and some of the others out there and said, well, if they could do it, and we've got attorneys, and maybe we can skirt around it the way that these other companies have done?
They may have, and I'll go back to a statement that Jim Farley said a while back about looking at how Tesla was doing. But I always said to this, in our state, they built dealerships. So they're not, the idea of selling these online is sort of a misnomer.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just up at the New York Auto Show, and I forget who the expert was that was talking about how many cars are really sold online.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he said, I'm positive, he said it was in total 1%, and that even Tesla only sold 6% of their cars online. This is not a product that you could just order online and get it dropped into your house.
Right.
You know, it's complicated. There's trade-ins involved in 60% of these. People want to drive a car that's $50, $60, $70,000. There's just so much behind this that the idea of, oh, I'll just open a website and do this. I think a lot of people have moved on to say that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Again, going back to Tesla, they are building brick and mortar stores because they finally realized they have to do that.
That's right.
And
That's right.
there's really no savings to that. In fact, our dealers are so much more efficient than Tesla. Our dealers sell, and every one of them's a used car dealer, and they can sell used cars, whereas Tesla won't sell anything but a Tesla. And there's just so many synergies and things
It really is.
that work.
And whenever Tesla gets into trouble, as they are now with regard to inventory levels and having to lay off 15,000 of their workers and what have you, you know, it's funny to me that you wouldn't want a network of let's say, you know, 500 dealers out there or more that's able to take on your inventory. You know, every dealer is sitting out there right now with anywhere from 30 to 90 days of inventory, some more. That helps the manufacturers in a very big way. And they've been doing that obviously for 100 years. That system seems to work. Plus you take those, you know, that manpower and you shift it over to the franchise dealer with regard to sales and service and such. And it saves that OEM millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? I mean, the system works.
The system works, and I think initially some of the direct sellers used this against us to be sort of anti-dealer.
Yeah.
But once you've opened a brick and mortar store and you get a license, you are a dealer.
You are a dealer. That's right.
So as much as you might not want to call yourself a dealer, you are.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you are right. There's a dealership that is in our area. It was an old Honda dealership actually that Tesla bought and then retrofitted it, and it's got a big showroom and it's got, you know, 20 service bays behind the showroom. And to your point, it's a dealership. There's no question about it. Yeah. And now, of course, they also have in our area in Georgia, they've got little galleries that are in shopping centers or, you know, malls or what have you. So I guess they've used that as well. But to the person walking into one of those stores, it's much like walking into a dealership. You've got 2 or 3 cars on display, and it's a dealership, right? So
right. It's sometimes without nearly as good of the service and parts that you'd expect to get your car fixed in a day or 2 or 3, not weeks. Sure. And that's definitely caused problems. There's no question our system, we think, is the most efficient, works the best, especially for the consumer. We got to go back to that because the consumer wins just in the price competition alone. Dealers, like in my market here, there's 3 Toyota stores. Mm-hmm. You know, they beat their brains out to get the customer in, and there's an incentive for them to lower the price.
Right.
In a direct sale situation, the price is the price. There's no compromise on that.
That's right. This is a very good point. That helps the consumer. It all helps. Franchise system, just at the end of the day, helps consumers better with their automotive needs, whether it be on the price of the car, the trade-in value, and then of course the servicing of that vehicle. So I agree with you, John. There's no question this is the way for these companies to go. So before I let you go, what's next? What is it? Kind of a wait and see to see how they respond, or to see how, you know, when they make a big announcement as to how they're going to do this?
I think it's a great question because I've had some of my counterparts ask that question just yesterday even. Sure. And I said, well, we have a board on ATAE. We'll kind of decide as a group what our next step is. I mean, I think looking forward, we got to keep the heat on.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot more we can do until they actually say what they're going to do, because they pin it at it. They may change their mind. They may go at this, and then we'll have to decide what other mechanisms we can use to, you know, come back to them and try and make them understand what the right way to go is here. But I think for right now, it's sort of keep the heat on. Mm-hmm. Doing things like this, maybe more articles, maybe we get a bit of more conversation out of both of these manufacturers
Sure.
to explain the details that I think they're missing.
Yeah, yeah, good, very good point. And Scott Keogh, dealers love Scott when he's Audi and
Absolutely.
Volkswagen and such. And I mean, he was a dealer's OEM. They really, everyone I ever spoke to, and I had the pleasure of interviewing him at one point. Very nice guy, got great plans, had really just an all around great car guy. So I think he owes it to the automotive community to come out and say, here are our intentions. Like them,
Yeah.
don't like them, whatever. But here's what we're going to do. It's about time.
I heard the same thing, Jim, and I will tell you, these plans to do these kind of things take a while. So they started to come up with these plans years ago, and you got to think years ago it looked a lot easier to sell electric cars.
That's right.
It does right now.
That's
So
right. Very good
there
point.
could be some shifting, and
Yeah.
it's not too hard to imagine that there's some discussions going on internally. They're going, oh, let's rethink this. Maybe I don't know that. That's
Maybe
against
they're in the process of designing an ICE engine to put in these cars,
Well,
knowing that there might be a much bigger market for those than there are EVs right now.
that's a
So
distinct possibility.
that's right. That's right. John Devlin, president of the Pennsylvania Automotive Association and the Automotive Trade Association Executives 2024 chairman. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate it. I know that our dealers will get a lot out of our discussion today. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.